It's called the Esquire Squad. The Esquire Squad. And I want to thank some of my subscribers for making up that name for our group. So you guys are the Esquire Squad, and we are intellectuals on this group, and we respectfully disagree if we have disagreements and so forth. But guys, I have to begin part 2 of the review of Tanasha Fryer's tell-all poetry book, Gracefully Broken. I did not get to finish the parts of the book that I wanted to go over because I was in a rush, had some things going on, and so now I have a break in my schedule. I'm going to finish with the part that I wanted to show you guys. First and foremost, I want to make a correction to the date of the divorce. Now, we talked about before, we weren't sure whether they got a divorce, but now, when I've read her book, I found out that her divorce was finalized based on her words. My last live, I thought I misread that she finalized her divorce after her mother passed away. Well, no, I reread it. It's in the preface. It's in the page 9 of the book. Once you order it, again, order the book. But she discusses the actual timeline. So she said in the preface, in this paragraph here I'm going to be reading from, she said in less than 2 months before she passed. So here she was talking about her mother. Towards the back of her book, she talks about her mother passing away August 2019. Okay, so we have a marker to start with. Her mother dies in August 2019. She's saying in less than 2 months before her mother passed. So that would take us back to June. Or if not, if less than 2, yeah, it had to have been sometime in June, I would say, or early July. But I'm thinking June, you guys. I'm thinking June or maybe early July, possibly around that time, 2019. But we at least can say 2019, she says her divorce was finalized. So she said, read that again, in less than 2 months before she passed, this is her language, divorce was final. There it is, divorce was final. So because if you guys have been on my channel, subscribe to me, you know that was the question we had because there were actual court documents that we looked at. And it showed that she had dismissed it and canceled it back in, I think it was, I don't remember what year it was, guys. Just go back to that video. We did a whole video on it. But it was dismissed and it said counsel code reason. I forgot what the counsel code reason was, but it was a counsel code. So that means she tried to divorce him before, canceled it at that time. And I guess, again, she decided to file for the divorce again. And it finally got finalized 2019. All right, 2019. So, the thing is, I don't know if this woman was married after Kevin Samuels and then she got divorced from the second guy, or is she talking about Kevin Samuels? Because the problem is the court dates on the website. We know she was located in Dallas, Texas. That's what the report or the court records show. We know based upon the first divorce how there was an allegation from the first wife saying that he had moved from Oklahoma to Texas and didn't notify her. So then he claimed, and so when they entered a default judgment in her favor, he tried to come back to Oklahoma claiming he didn't have notice. But her allegation was the first wife, Sherry, said he never notified her that he had relocated to Texas. That's why I'm saying the timing really relates to how he met Tanasha, because Tanasha was in Texas. So, we looked through those court records and we couldn't find it. But she is saying that her divorce was final. And we know if we put the times together, 2 years ago, this book was published to 2021. 2 years ago would have been 2000, from 2021 would have been 2019. All right, and her mother passed away August 2019. So I'm believing either end of July, end of June, early July was when her divorce was finalized. Her mother was alive at the time. Then 2 months later, or less thereof, her mother passes. So she had trauma after trauma, all right? Loss after loss. Then she had to go through 2020 of the pandemic. Her business suffered a loss, and so she had to endure that. So that caused another delay in her publishing her book. And so finally, when 2021 came around, that's when she published this book. So I just want you guys to be aware so we know the answers now based on her words. This is Tanasha's words, all right? Because clearly we're not going to get an interview from her. So we got to use her book. So there is one last poem I wanted to share with you guys. I was intending to share this one with you in my original video, but unfortunately I ran out of time and I had to get back to my schedule. But this poem, guys, is just too much for me not to share. I have to share this poem with you guys. And then again, you guys need to buy her book. Please buy her book, okay? Because that really will open you into what trauma Tanasha went through, and you probably can get a inside scoop into the toxicity of, in my opinion, I think she's talking about Kevin Samuels. I'm just saying. And if that divorce was related to Kevin Samuels in the 2019, that was a long amount of years. That was from 2008 to 2019. So yeah, that just, and we know, remember, we went back to that court document and she canceled it the first time when she filed that divorce. So I don't know if she changed her mind, went back to him, tried to work it out for all that time. And then finally in 2019, she was like, okay, I'm done. I can't keep doing this. I'm out, right? That's the allegation. Again, these are all allegations and opinions. So we don't know the full story, just based on her words. But this poem, guys, let's listen to this poem. This poem is, it's in depth. And to me, it really kind of goes into the mind of how these men always say, you need to be submissive. But they have a real kind of weird way of describing submission. Okay, so let's read what she says. And she's being sarcastic in this poem, so don't take it as her like really literally meaning what she's saying. She's just being sarcastic. And her title is A Little Sarcasm. She says, my fault, my bad, my fault. My fault for falling in love with you. So she's like, my fault for falling for the games, basically. Falling for the charm. Falling for the love bombing. Like I told you, if you went to the first part one of this, narcissists do a lot of love bombing. So it could create a cloud over your judgment. And so you may think that this person is genuine and sincere, but in reality, they are toxic and they have a mastermind, a plan to break you down and basically break you down to a point where you start doubting yourself. So first she's like, my bad for falling for it, basically. My bad for falling in love with you. My fault for believing you gave a DAMN about me. So my fault for being fooled into thinking you cared. My fault for being blind and not being able to see. Same thing I talked about before, just kind of not being able to see the red flags, just kind of being clouded with love, that rose-colored glasses that you get at the beginning of the honeymoon phase of a relationship. Especially narcissists are so good at the honeymoon phase. They're really, really good at charming you, putting kind of, a shield over your, clouding your judgment, basically. So she's saying I wasn't able to see the red flags, in my opinion. The phony ASS heart and mind you subjected upon thee. All right, the phony, the fake, basic, the fake, fake display of care for her, fake display of showing you genuinely were there for her. She's saying that was phony. All right, my fault for falling for your charm and gentle caress. See, this is all related to the love bombing she's trying to, explain here, of that phase when they start out. My fault for later being under duress. That's pretty deep. My fault for later being under duress. I wonder if she's felt like, because, once she fell for the charm and once she was so clouded in her judgment and overlooked the red flags, then she became so emotionally attached to Mr. Samuels. In my opinion, I think she's talking about Mr. Samuels. I'm just saying, just my opinion. I could be wrong, but who knows? All right. So she said, my fault for falling for your charm and gentle caress. My fault for later being under duress. Once you get this emotional attachment to that person after they have clouded your judgment, you feel this sense of just inability to break free because you're so emotionally, you feel so emotionally bound in the relationship. You're so attached to it. You're like, I've been so involved in this relationship so far. I'm now married. Let me try to work it out. And that to me makes sense because the first court records we saw that she filed for the divorce. She had to get a payment schedule because she couldn't pay it at the time, for the filings. And then there was a point in time where it just says it was dismissed. So I wonder if that time she changed her mind at that point back when she filed at first and she was like, okay, let me try again. And so she's like, my fault for later being under duress, feeling so emotionally attached to this man that she felt she couldn't get out of it. Just my opinion, guys. My fault for believing the beautiful lies. Aren't they good at doing the lies, God? They are so good at that. that came out of your mouth. Sweet as honey, guys. They will give you beautiful lies, tell you beautiful nothings to draw you in. And that's what she's talking about. That first, I was talking about the honeymoon phase when they're just putting you on this platform, worshiping the ground you've walked on. They put this whole strategy together on you. And the whole purpose is, the thing is too, a lot of them try to get women that they feel are above them, like in terms of their career or their prestige, because it makes them feel more empowered when they're narcissists and they have that low self-esteem. They feel more empowered if they're able to break those type of people down to the point where they are so codependent on the narc to even be able to make this daily decisions. That is what empowers them, right? So in this situation, she was saying, man, my fault for even believing the beautiful lies that came out of your mouth is like, she's saying basically she did kind of be broken down into believing that this person really cared about her. And again, I think it's Kevin Samuels. I'm just saying, it's my opinion. My fault for being uncomfortable when I moved into your house. My fault for not allowing myself to be manipulated and controlled. This is the part right here, guys, where I feel the submission definition. All right. Because when you heard a lot of the commentary on Kevin Samuels' page, he always asked the women who has been in careers and stuff, he's like, are you willing to submit? It seems as though he tries to correlate career woman as a feminist and having an inability to submit. Right. So here, when she's saying my fault for not allowing myself to be manipulated and controlled, if you are unable to be manipulated and controlled, in their mind, they're thinking you're not being submissive, right? They're thinking you're being a feminist and you're, not submitting to your husband. So she's saying, oh, my fault for not being submissive, not being passive and letting you do whatever you want. My fault for not letting you control and manipulate my mind, but actually having a mind and being able to see through the mess. So let's read that again. My fault for not allowing myself to be manipulated and controlled. All right, because Kevin Samuels was big on submission, but they have a very convoluted way of defining, this very kind of weird way of defining submission. All right, it's not the typical submission you think of as like, for example, like the healthy type of submission in a marriage is, your husband says, hey, honey, I think we should, invest in purchasing this type of property for us to increase our financial status and, increase our financial, portfolio. A wife who submits to her husband will say, honey, even if she disagrees, she'll respectfully disagree and say, honey, I don't know if this is a good investment for these reasons. However, honey, I respect your decision. We'll go with, what you say. I trust you, but I'm just giving my, disagreement on this one. That is a healthy form of submission. You can still voice your opinion, but you're like, okay, I'll trust you on this. We can go ahead and go with your route, but I'm just letting you know what I feel. But with the narc, their way of submission is when they're abusive to you, when they're tearing you down, you are supposed to just accept everything and go with the flow. Just be a doormat. Take it all in. Whatever they tell you, even if it's a form of manipulation or control, you do exactly what they say. If they want you to dress a certain way, wear your hair a certain way, look a certain way, go to certain places, don't go to certain places, you are supposed to do exactly what they say. That's how they define submission, guys. So I feel like here she's breaking this down for me, or for us, in my opinion. She said, it was all on me. And you see, remember in her early book, you got to watch my prior video on it. She talks about how, and I believe it's Kevin Samuels, how basically it was the person never took accountability. He never took accountability. He was always blaming her, basically. And so now she's being sarcastic, saying, okay, it's all my fault. Basically, I'm the evil one. I'm the witch. I'm the bitch. Let it be told. Being sarcastic. It's all my fault. You don't want to take responsibility for your part in this, why this relationship didn't work out. I'll just take your word for it, sarcastically speaking. She said, my fault, and here's where I told you guys, this really to me relates to how he has this very toxic way of defining submission. My fault for calling out the BS and standing my ground, being firm and assertive, refusing to be knocked down. This right here we need to break down. That's very important Because if you've been watching my prior videos, I was telling you guys that a lot of like the manosphere and the Kevin Samuels agenda is that they want you to be submissive in that you are not supposed to stand your ground. You're not supposed to be firm or assertive. And that is a typical characteristic of a Black woman. Black women will vocalize when they are not treated right. They will stand their ground, they will be firm, and they will be assertive. If you're not treating them right, you will hear how they feel. And that was the issue Kevin Samuels had with Black women. He had 2 Black women who stood their ground. They were firm, they were assertive, they called out the BS, and were refused to be knocked down. They stood their standards and they walked away. They filed divorces against him, 2 of them. And he didn't like that because he felt they weren't being submissive. Both these women have high careers based on the stuff I've looked at. They're career women, they're Black, and they stand their ground, and they're going to call out the BS. Stuff, characteristics that Kevin Samuel despised in the Black woman. And if you go and watch his lives, you will see in most of those lives with Black women, he brings out these same issues, claiming that the Black woman that's in the career is a feminist and she doesn't know how to submit. Well, this is what he defines as submission, basically. All right? Being manipulated, being controlled, not calling out the BS, just letting it happen. That's how he defines it, in my opinion. This is my opinion. Not standing your ground, not being firm, not being assertive. And you need to be able to be knocked down. Be a doormat. That, in my opinion, is what Kevin Samuels defines as submission. It's a very weird, twisted way they define this in the manosphere. And they have had an issue, in my opinion, with Black women because Black women are firm and assertive. I'm a Black woman, so I can tell you I can speak on the behalf of a lot of Black women. We are firm and assertive, and we will call you out for your BS. We will. If you're not treating us right, if you're cheating on us, if you're talking disrespectful, if you're abusive, we will tell you we're not gonna tolerate this. And if you keep acting this way, we're gonna pack up our bags and leave. Okay? But women in other cultures, not so much. They will put up with the BS. They won't stand their ground. They'll be passive. They'll put up with years and years and years and years and years of just toxicity, abuse, cheating. They'll put up with all of it. And that's what Kevin Samuels was trying to teach the Black woman to do. Be more like these non-Black women. That's what he was trying to do. That's why he was like, oh, look at the Latina woman. You see, she brings the table. She does this, this, and this. You need to be more like her. That is what my opinion is about Kevin Samuel. And I feel like she is breaking it down for us with what she went through in the household and what he took that same agenda, put it on a platform, and started trying to educate all Black women how to be submissive, how to be a doormat, in my opinion. That's what my opinion is based on this. This is a prior wife, 2 women that stood up for themselves. And it's, to me, in conformity with a lot of how I've known Black women to be. I could just speak for the Black women I personally know and myself. That we will not allow ourselves to be manipulated and controlled. I mean, we will put up some stuff here and there, but you will hear us call you out on your mess. If you're doing something, we're going to let you know. We're going to let you know we don't like it, we don't appreciate it, and you need to stop. We're going to put up some parameters. And Kevin Samuels and a lot of the men in the Black manosphere don't like that. They don't want you to have standards, women. They want you to sit there as a doormat and accept it all. Don't be affirm or assertive. And so they feel like the women that are more educated, they even have more of a stance because they're more educated, they're more aware. And so they will, identify toxicity in the relationship and they will address it and they will walk away. And we have 2 examples of that, Sherry and Tanasha, who both filed divorces. They were calling him out on his BS. They were standing their ground. They were being firm and assertive, and they refused to be knocked down by his continued toxicity, and they walked away. And that's why Kevin Samuels has been bitter and angry, guys, at the Black woman. That's my opinion. That is my opinion. So I had to go over this story, you guys. This poem, because I feel like this poem was so powerful into the mind of how the manosphere, in my opinion, the Kevin Samuels agenda, is for the Black woman to have a kind of convoluted, toxic way of submitting, aka, in my opinion, being a doormat. That's what I feel that he defines submission as. And I've just described you in this video what a healthy form of submission is versus the way the Kevin Samuels manosphere defines submission as. In my opinion, based on this woman, in my opinion, who is married to him. And I just believe in my heart that it could be Kevin Samuels she's talking about. I could be totally wrong if she comes out with defining or explaining who the person is. Who knows? But I do remember we talked about in my prior video of her book, she says he's not even worthy to be mentioned his name. So clearly this person deeply hurt her. And like I said, there is a comment on another person who did a review of the book from a person who personally met Tanasha, spoke with her, referenced Kevin Samuels' name, and there was just this face of disgust when she even heard his name. So just all those different allegations out there just kind of make me believe in my, mind, in my opinion, that she was referencing Kevin Samuels and her very toxic, long drawn out terrible experience with being married to him. There was another part of that woman's comment that says, I guess Kevin Samuels mentioned something in an interview about he did admit he was immature in the relationship and he possibly wanted her back. I don't know if it's true, but it's an allegation out there. Who knows? But the problem is, I don't think he really dealt with the hurt and bitterness as it relates to those relationships. I feel like those two relationships, in my opinion, were the root stem cause of him, in my opinion, having this resentment towards the Black woman and going on this rampage of an agenda of trying to break down the Black woman and make her into a doormat, in my opinion, aka submission. They're kind of deprived, kind of toxic way of defining the submission, I believe. The way they it's not really a healthy way of submission. It's kind of like a control manipulation type of submission, not the way God wanted it to be, I'm saying. So let me know what you guys think. Again, I'm gonna attach her link to her book in the description, and you guys should definitely order it because there is tons of other poems in here that really break down the heartbreak this woman went through. She even references marriage in there, so I'm believing, she was married to him, so maybe those poems really do kind of link her to, talking about Kevin Samuels. And let me know what you think. All right, take care, guys. Have a good day.